Chet Hirani is an experienced executive performance and life coach with a background in software engineering and 20 years of corporate experience. He combines technical expertise with a deep understanding of the challenges faced by business owners, leaders, and high achievers. As a TEDx speaker and podcast host, he motivates others to reach their full potential. Chet is also a long distance biker and martial arts trainer who embodies the warrior spirit of humanity, clarity, and integrity. Let's talk to him on an interesting topic: changing gears, how to lead from within and recharge so that you take charge and inspire others to do the same. This is the Guiding Voice podcast series, the Guiding Voice for a Better Future. I'm your host, Navin Samala, just a fellow professional on a mission to make the world a better place to live. Through the Guiding Voice, we drive conversations that matter and conversations that add value to your life and to your career. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Chet, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Naveen. It's a pleasure being invited onto the show today. We're recording this. I'm in London, so doing pretty well. It's the morning at the moment, so doing pretty well. Start of the week, and ready to rock and roll, should I say?
Awesome, that's the spirit. And on that note, let's start our conversation, Chet, and let's start with the top three things that have attributed to your professional success so far. Like, you spent 20 years in the corporate, especially in the IT world, and then now you are wearing a new hat as an executive coach, right? So what are top three things that have shaped who you are today?
So the top three things. This was fairly like a more of a difficult question to ask because there's more than three things I came up with, but one of them, should I say, was a near sort of life and death situation, which sort of shaped things up for me. The other one would potentially be the 20 years, as you said, in the corporate tech world. It's seeing it from like more or less from a bird's eye view, and also understanding where all the pieces are missing within people personally and professionally. Which then allowed me to sort of go away and actually analyze it in further detail. Like, what is it that needs to be done? And the other thing I would say is pretty much doing a bike ride, 180-mile bike ride over 2 days. I did it on my own. I did it for charity, but I took the challenge on myself. And while doing that, it's actually allowed me to sort of discover more about myself, the potentials that what people are capable of doing, and also then allowed me to refine what I now call the 5 states of optimization.
Wow, 5 states of optimization. And one thing that is common thing is I'm also a long distance biker, and I used to participate in 100 kilometers cycling as part of our Republic Day celebrations in Hyderabad.
Wow.
And there was a foundation called the Atlanta Foundation who used to conduct and organize these rides. And as you said, that 100 kilometer, right, it's a me time, and we get a chance to introspect and reflect upon what is working, what is not working.
I mean, you've got a lot of time on your hands, right?
Absolutely. All right. So I'm really curious. Like you said, you had a glimpse of bird's eye view into the professionals, both on the personal side as well as professional front, and you found those missing pieces. And after 2 decades of corporate experience, you took a plunge into entrepreneurial journey as an executive coach. So are there any toughest lessons, which you encountered or which you learned, which you did not anticipate before taking that step?
Yeah. So thing is, when I moved into sort of coaching itself, just sort of to give a bit of story, that I've always wanted to do coaching, but I didn't know what to work on. But then within the corporate world, especially in tech, it was in the tech industry that I was in. So I've always said now to anyone that once you work in tech, you can work in any environment because you understand the fast-pacedness of the tech industry. Everything's changing every single day. And one thing and to answer your question is about the change, right? With tech changing, our lives are also changing. And putting those into perspective, we want to make sure that we don't forget about ourselves, because tech moves at a fast pace. We always say that life is too short, but we only have one life. So if we are able to embrace that and move within those times, but then ultimately be in control of the situation and the decisions that you make, is what then I've discovered over looking at things from a bird's eye view. Tech was also always taking control of people's lives. Like, you work on projects, you work towards deadlines. There's a new sort of tech piece, innovations coming out. And that always tend to sort of take control of people's lives in what's the next best thing to do. And while we're doing that, we forget about our own value, our own worth. And if we're able to take that step back, or always look at it from a bird's eye view, you're able to see what's missing. And most of the time, what's missing is us. We're allowing things to sort of take us forward when we can't be doing that. We need to take control, especially in this ever-changing world at the moment. AI is the top thing at the moment. But we've got to remember, humans created AI. So AI should not be controlling humans. And yeah, I'm all for it. But it was all about controlling and the decisions that you make and the change, which is fundamentally what I really discovered throughout the whole process there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you brought in a very important aspect. Change is something which we have to embrace, and we have to keep on pace or on par with the change, right? I resonate with
absolutely.
you. Now let's take a step back and talk more about your bike ride experience. Like you said, 180 miles over 2 days, and that changed your perspective about life altogether, right? What are various thoughts that have come through, and what kind of decisions that you have made during those 2 days?
Yeah. So it took me, I didn't know what I was putting myself in for when I did the 180 miles. I really did not have a clue what to expect, which was probably the most exciting part of it all. And that's when we talk about fear. Now, I always use fear as excitement, because it's something that you know you're capable of doing. Everyone's fearful. Life is full of fear. That's what we say. But rather than seeing it that way, it's going to be exciting, seeing what's next for you. But as you do that, you're going to make sure things are in control. As much as you can be in control of, not everything can be in control. Yeah. And the first day, for example, a week before the bike ride, I hurt my back. So I was on the floor for the whole week. I didn't train. I didn't do anything. And I didn't know whether I was going to do it. Now, I was not in control of my back giving way. I didn't know that was going to happen. But then I decided to take control of the situation of what to do. So when I did the 90 miles, the first day of the 90 miles, it was a struggle. And I thought to myself, all in my head was, it's over 2 days. Get to the first point, because that's when you're going to discover what the next day is going to be like. But as I got to the first day and I got through the first day, my muscles, everything was hurting. I was in pain throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
And pain that I've never felt. I didn't even see the hills coming.
Mm-hmm.
And while the hills were all coming, I didn't train my mind about how the hills to go. Now, I wouldn't say I'm a professional long distance bike rider, but I'm capable of doing this. That's what I knew straight away. And as I was learning through that, I discovered my TED Talk is very much based on this whole piece of the 180 miles. And it's understanding that the fact that you ultimately, it's not a lane that you control. Yeah. You basically control the road, because a road may have multiple lanes, but you are in control of that whole road, because that road is yours. So if you need to switch lanes, you can switch lanes. And this is about change, because there's going to be obstacles coming, but you should be able to be aware of which lane to switch to at any given moment in every time. And I discovered that on the first day. And as the second day started approaching, I wasn't sure what I needed to do. I couldn't give up, because I couldn't go back. I only had to go forward. And that was going through my mind. I reprogrammed everything that was going from emotionally, physically, mentally. And as I did that, I started refining the 5 states of optimization. So it started helping me understand about the planning state, the productivity state, the people state, the prospect state, and the performance state, which all basically is intertwined in our life as well, from our life where we use it for personally and professionally, which then started helping me discover and redefine not only the 5 steps of optimization, but also my why.
Mm-hmm.
What am I here for? What am I doing? Which is a very hard question to ask somebody, what is your why? Because I don't feel that many people actually understand it when they actually are asked that question. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that I started, and there's a lot of reflection going on, which allowed me to sort of let go of past experiences, but then essentially adopt a new mindset of excellence.
Oh, interesting. And let's now dive deep into these 5 states of optimization: planning, productivity, people, prospect, and performance. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the 5 steps of optimization can be used in any particular moment in your life. There's not a sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of thing. And it effectively is like the 5 steps of optimization can also be called the 5 pillars to a winning mindset as well. But the whole idea of these 5 states is to unlock your true potential. Yeah. And as you're doing this, as you are working through the 5 states of optimization, you're working on the first thing is the planning state, for example. Yeah. Now the planning state is linked to our emotional intelligence called self-management. Now this is about improving your decision making, prioritizing goals, and creating action plans. And then another state is the productivity state, which is linked to our self-awareness. And what you do with this one, you start cultivating and focusing on your time management skills, and you discover what sort of balance there is. We talk about work-life balance, but you create your own unique sense of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one would be the people state, which is linked to our social awareness. Now, what this will do is it enhances our own empathy, our communication skills, our collaboration. And then you've got the prospect state, which is linked to our relationship management. Now, that is all about promoting strong connections, resolving conflicts, and start building trust. But you still need to start building trust within yourself before you can do it anywhere else and outside. And then the fifth one is the performance state, which is all to do with your personal and professional development. And this is all about setting growth targets. You start developing new skills and you start achieving success within yourself, which ultimately putting all those together, as I said earlier on, it starts to allow you to unlock your actual true potential as well and what you are actually capable of. But then ultimately, you start to stop compromising and you start to operate at a higher level where you begin to inspire others to do the same.
And how can someone master these 5 states of optimization?
So the mastering the 5 steps of optimization, it's a great question. You have to want to do it first. You have to want to understand what is it all about. Now, I'm not saying to everybody you have to go on a 180-mile bike ride over 2 days to rediscover it, because that's going to be crazy. Okay, people call me crazy. My family called me crazy for doing it. I don't know. People do far more longer rides and longer things, but this is a personal thing for me, right? So in order to master it for yourself, it's almost letting go of all the past experiences that you've had, and that's the first key to master it. Never have regret. Yeah, and if you're able to sort of overcome that regret, you can then essentially start understanding and knowing what you are valued at, what your worth is. Now, once you discover what your worth is and what your own value is, you create this whole uniqueness within yourself. And it's not comparing it to anybody else. I talk about this day in, day out, and I never say to people to compare to me. You use things as inspiration, but you never, you don't need to replicate what somebody's done in order for it to work, because it might not work for you. And you discover all of these things to actually really find that whole unique sense of value within yourself and your worth. So mastering it essentially would be the first point of call, is to let go of past experiences, which then leads to, as I said earlier on, is to adopt a new mindset of excellence.
Many times people get stuck with the past experience, and that will actually bias the future state and also perception about how the future is going to look like. I think you have clarified it so well. Now talk. Let's talk more about notyourordinarycoach.com. So you are here to address the gaps, okay, which you found from the bird's eye perspective and help people achieve excellence both on personal front as well as professional front. So why did it all start? And first, my basic question is: did you ever imagine that you would shift from IT and become a coach?
Yeah. So, a great question. So, while I was at university, I studied I did a bachelor's in computer science and I did a master's in software engineering. And while I was there, I always wanted to do something which related to transformation. I've always been a people person. I always loved speaking to people. The people network side of things is something that's really key to me. But then I also discovered that I can listen. I'm a good active listener. And I think that's an important aspect of things is listening and allowing that person to complete what they need to say. So then while they do that, I'm analyzing, I'm seeing what those people are doing. Now, my background in tech was in quality assurance. So it's continuously looking at what the best ways of doing things and making sure there are essentially things are bug free, but things aren't bug free. Yeah, there's always going to be something there, but that's just like human beings. Yeah, we're not going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that doesn't relate to somebody else, or there's going to be something that doesn't relate to us within, or we are not going to be compatible with certain other areas. And I talk about when I talk about these sort of things, I talk about integration as well. But before all of that, when I moved into sort of coaching, I started discovering how does that work? And I became interested in the human behaviors, the drivers, what emotionally really charges us. How can we then start to then effectively start leading from within, so we're able to recharge within ourselves to then take charge and inspire others to do the same. And as I was doing all of that, I then moved into the corporate world. I started coaching people inside the corporate world as well. And as I was doing that, it got to the point in my life and my career that I thought I no longer want to be in the corporate tech world inside it, but I want to be outside it and helping others. Mm-hmm. And doing that has then evolved into Not Your Ordinary Coach. And Not Your Ordinary Coach essentially is my style of coaching. One thing is that I've learned from my mother, is the way I've grown up, is basically being very rigorous in my approach, being a straight talker. There's a no nonsense approach in the way I operate, basically, when I'm coaching. And I believe in that because it's about getting the best out of somebody. And when you get the best out of somebody, we need to understand, we need to get vulnerable. We need to get to the points where we feel like we can't speak to anybody, or we've never opened up or spoken to anybody. And this is all part of energy as well. And this is where we find new energy within ourselves. And when we start finding this new energy, we can project this energy out to people. And it's very much about energy, the vibration frequencies of how you basically manage it. Now, we all go up and down. But how do we manage to stay in a nice sort of wave? And that's, again, the emotional intelligence side of things. The 5 states of optimization manages our own vibration, manages our own frequency, brings in the new energy that we need to create and provide to people outside. So Not Your Ordinary Coach has evolved very much into that. People do say, I've heard people say in the past that you really are quite hard in the way you coach. Mm-hmm. And I say, yes, I am hard away in our coach, but it might not be for everybody. Yeah. And it's okay, because I can't coach everybody. I'm going to say that hands down. If I personally believe I can't coach every single person out there, but I want to coach as many people as I possibly can and transform their lives. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have been transforming executives achieve greater productivity. So can you share a couple of instances, okay, without naming them, right? How your coaching has helped them achieve greater productivity, and what kind of results did they achieve?
Yeah, sure thing. So there's been during the height of the pandemic, for example, I've worked with quite a few startups, and before the pandemic, startups were getting funded and everything was great, and then the pandemic happened. But then during those moments, I was working with a client, and then they're in a tech field, and they did what most startups do, unfortunately, right? Is they see too many zeros in their bank accounts. Yeah. And when they see too many zeros in their bank accounts, they end up spending on things which is, in my personal opinion, wasted, right? And you don't need to do that straight off. There are ways about doing this, ways of planning how you spend, what you do, where it goes. We all knew there was a pandemic coming. So then they hired people, a new executive team they hired. And while they were hiring those, I was like, well, what is the point of hiring them? I was straight away, I said it to them. I said, do you really need these people within this organization at the moment? Now, it's all well and good giving people jobs, but this is also your business, this is your company. You need to keep the lights on. You need to and there's a plan for where your business needs to go. They disagreed with me and said, yep, we need CEO, a CTO. We need these people. And I was like, well, okay, I personally, I'm telling you, you don't need them.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on, the technology was advancing. They were getting new clients. They were building. They were really making money coming in for the business, and it was going well. And then all of a sudden, things started shifting within the exec team. Yeah, there was conflict started being created. And I was, well, what is this conflict? Why is this being created? What's the reason for this to be happening at such an early stage?
Mm-hmm.
What's the reason why people aren't so invested in what's happened, what's going on? And this is the important part of it. And that person that person who was my client could not answer that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then I suggested maybe you need to get rid of this whole exec team, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I was very straightforward. It didn't bother me that she might turn around and say, I can't work with you as a coach anymore because you're telling me the wrong things. And I was like, fine, let's just continue as we are, but I'm going to keep monitoring what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And there were points where they were, and then eventually what happened is that technology, the C-suite were planning taking that tech away from the actual owner, and we were going through battles about for this not to happen. We overcame that through a lot of things, which I can't go into in detail, but we then got to a stage where we were at places where there was more funding coming in. Yeah. So that's a success because of all the changes that we managed to reorganize within the organization mentally. The individual themselves were going through a really bad phase in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And personally and professionally, because of what was happening in the business. And this happens to people when they run their own businesses. Yeah, the thought process is that they feel that they're on their own, but you're not on your own. Yeah, there's always networks and connections out there. So we eventually got to a place where they were bought out. They were bought out, went through an IPO. They were successful. They still are successful. And throughout that whole cycle, that was one of the things. And in my mind, it was always the thing is that, when you have that figure about startups failing, when they say X amount, I can't remember, is it 90% or 80% of startups will fail? That's always been in my head. Why? What's the reason for them to fail? Now, I personally think it always starts from the inside, whether it starts from outside anywhere else. And most of the time it does. So what are we going to do to overcome that? And that's where I come in to say the truth. I really do not tolerate when clients, we have back and forth with clients. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's never going to be great. Yeah. But that's one of the reasons why people invest in themselves and their businesses to get people like myself and others to help them in these situations. Their minds are focused on one specific area and then can't look everything outside. And we're here to help them do that.
Yeah. I think, again, this is got to do with the perception based on the past. And that's why they may not give attention to the different perspective that is coming their way. Right. Mm-hmm. So now let's briefly talk about your podcast and the best episode that you have done so far, what it is all about.
Yeah. So my podcast, again, it's called Not Your Ordinary Coach. The best episode that I've done on my podcast personally, it's an interesting one, to be honest. Yeah. It's, it's very much about leadership. Yeah. The podcast is about leadership, but a different spin on leadership. And the reason why I call it a different spin on leadership, because many cultures may not think that this is the right way of doing things, but it was talking about energy, but the sexual energy that comes out within people. This is not from a sexual standpoint. This all comes from within us. Men and females have this have some of energy that we can project. But then, how do we use those, and how do we advance those into becoming a better leader in the professional world? But essentially, also how to become a better leader within yourself personally too. Because a good leader, in my mind and in my eyes, is somebody who demonstrates the skills both personally and professionally. And it's not just done in one point professionally, which most people would think that. I always think it's always in both parts of your life. And that's where this balance comes in. Yeah, you find your uniqueness of it all. So one of my best episodes of my podcast was around those, definitely.
I can resonate with a lot of thoughts that you have shared. I think it looks like there is a alignment between your and my thought process.
Good.
Good. So
that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this podcast.
Indeed. So let's add some spice to the conversation, Chet, and sure. I'm going to kick off a quick rapid fire round now.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you can just answer them crisply. And here comes my first question. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
That's very straightforward for me. It'd basically be lead from within to recharge so that you take charge and inspire others to do the same.
Wow. That's so profound. And what makes you to get out of your bed every morning?
What gets me out of my bed every morning is, for me, what gets me out of my bed every single morning, right, is the fact that I get to get out of bed every morning. No one's telling me that I have to.
Yeah.
So I have it in mind, I get to get out of bed every morning. And as I get to bed every morning, I'm in control of what's going to be happening after that.
Yeah. And can you describe yourself in just one word?
In one word. Describe myself in one word. I would say, I'm emotional.
Emotional.
Yeah.
And what is the weirdest thing that you have ever eaten?
The weirdest thing I've ever eaten. Okay, so I was in the Philippines and I ate something called balot. Now, balot is basically a day-old duck egg. And it's a delicacy in the Philippines. You have it with either vinegar or salt or something, but then you got to make sure you have a drink next to you as well when you have it. So have a look into that balot. BALUT.
ALUT. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Got it. And do you watch shows one episode at a time or binge watch whole season? In case if you
Right. Okay. So that varies. I have moments. I have my Netflix and Amazon Prime and all those sort of days that I have. And usually I will make sure that I binge watch as much as I can. I'm going to be honest here, right? It's not just one episode at a time. There's a reason why they have multiple episodes, because they want you to watch those. But again, it's my decision. I choose to do that. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And it's just keeping it that simple. So I do. Yeah, I love binge watching.
Interesting. When OTT platforms were launched for the first time in India, especially one in the vernacular language, the language which I speak, Telugu, I remember, I think for the first 1 week, I finished watching about 4 or 5 different series, all the seasons that were published. And after that, I never got a chance. Okay.
Oh, no. I mean, if I get a moment to watch something, I will watch it and I'll sit there and I'll watch it. But most of the time when I'm watching it, I'm actually probably doing some work as well. But work that doesn't require a lot of thought process.
All right.
It could be a bit of creativity work that I'm doing that doesn't require thought process. So I'm not feeling bad about myself or just sitting there doing something. I like doing a few things. It's not doing 2 things at once. But it's just the way I operate. I prefer doing things that way.
Great. And with that, let me fire the last bullet. What is one electronic gadget or the fantasy gadget that you would like to see or invent yourself?
So I would a technology gadget that I would like to invent. You know, it's funny you say this because I was talking to my stepdaughter the other day because she's very much into sort of technology as well. And when you think about it, the first thing that's coming to my head at the moment is almost something called a magic pen, right? Where you can basically just your thoughts. You can basically just put this pen down and it will just write your thoughts for
Wow.
you, but on paper and things like that. It's one of those. That's something that I think about would be great. But then there's also so many other things like the virtual reality cases as well. I'm a big fan of things like that and the whole metaverse. I love it.
Yeah, I think on the magic pen is quite fascinating. I'm sure it might come alive once Neuralink is active.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, it'd be great, having one of those sort of things. Because even if you can just your thoughts, because a lot of people struggle to use a physical pen and write it on paper.
Yeah.
Now, it's the best thing ever to do. I'm telling you, mentally stimulates you, and seeing it. If you're writing something and you're writing these words, there's a pen with this ink that's showing you what you're writing. Yeah. Okay. It's not like typing away, and you see it. Yeah. So if you're able to do that and you're able to have almost like a glass wall or something, you can see your thought process. You can put these on the glass wall. You can see what you're writing, and you just put it away in the cloud somewhere. It's there. But then it still doesn't take away the actual physical paper element either, because that's very important too. Yeah. But from a sustainability perspective, sometimes paper you got to use it as less as possible, and from an environment perspective as well.
Yeah, makes sense. And that was interesting rapid fire. Let's flip back to the mainstream. And here comes my next one. What is your one piece of advice to those aspiring to be hyper productive or who want to make it big?
We want to make it big. So this basically loops back to the first bit when you talk about the billboard. Yeah, and this is essentially my why, because it's something that took me some time to discover. And this is something that I will always basically do. So again, I'll just repeat that again. It's basically you want to make sure that you start to learn to lead from within. And as you start leading from within, you allow yourself to recharge so that you can take charge and inspire others to do the same. Because that is everybody's ambition is you do something to help other people. Yeah. And if you're inspiring them, you're doing a good job both personally and professionally within yourself.
Super mind-blowing. And yeah, that's a great conversation. And I would like to conclude this episode with one final question. How has been your experience being hosted on The Guiding Voice?
You know what? If I was, as I said, I'm a straight talker and I say the truth.
I need to.
You need the truth. No, it's been a pleasure. Honestly, it has. Yeah. I love doing these. I love speaking to podcast hosts, and your questions that you fired were great questions as well. Actually, allows me to also think and be truthful in what I'm saying as well. There's never a sort of a doubt, and it's really nice. It's a great experience. I mean, I actually love this whole moment and this time together.
Yeah, same here. And it was a pleasure hosting you. Thank you so much, Chet, for your time and for all the insights that you have shared. And it has been wonderful talking to you.
Appreciate it. Take care. Thank you.
Sure. So, friends, that was our episode with Chet Hirani. And before we move into the trivia section, here is a request to you. In case if you haven't subscribed to us, please subscribe from wherever you have tuned into this episode. And also, if you have loved this conversation and found the episode useful, request you to share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from The Guiding Voice. Thank you so much in advance. Now, let's hop into the trivia segment. And today, I thought I would bring you a few facts related to cars. And here are a few facts. First one is James Watt builds the first engine crank way back in 1782. And when were the toll roads opened in the US? Here comes the answer. In 1792, first US toll roads opened in Pennsylvania and Connecticut. And in 1860, Jean Lenoir invented the spark plug. And in 1887, the Benz became the first car offered for sale. And in 1896, the Duria became the first production motor vehicle in the US. And in 1897, the first auto insurance policy is purchased in Westfield, Massachusetts. So here are the few facts. And with that, let's conclude the episode. But before I let you go, do not forget to share your feedback and also any topic recommendations or guest speaker suggestions through social media or email me at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host Navin Samala, just a fellow professional and a passionate learner on a mission to make the world a better place to live through conversations that matter and conversations that add value to your life and to your career. Until next time, bye bye. See you all in the next episode with another wonderful guest.